Have you ever had that moment when you realize the person who's supposed to support your career is actually sabotaging it? That sickening feeling when you discover years of your hard work have been deliberately undermined by someone you trusted? I never thought it would happen to me. But when it did, I didn't just get mad. I got everything. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. Mine came with a side of $15 million. My name is Cassandra Mitchell, and until 6 months ago, I was just another senior product developer at Nexus Dynamics, a mid-sized tech company that specialized in business software solutions. Not exactly glamorous, but it paid the bills and occasionally let me flex my creative muscles. I'd been there 7 years, longer than most, working my way up from junior developer to leading my own small team. It wasn't my dream job, but I was good at it, respected, and on a clear path to a director position, or so I thought. It all started with what should have been my career-defining moment. For 3 years, I'd been developing a side project, a revolutionary inventory management system that used predictive AI to anticipate supply chain disruptions before they happened. In an increasingly unstable global market, this kind of technology could save companies millions in lost revenue and wasted resources. I called it Foresight Flow. The name came to me during one of those late-night coding sessions, fueled by nothing but coffee and determination. The system could analyze thousands of data points from global news, weather patterns, political developments, and market fluctuations to predict potential supply chain issues months in advance, giving businesses time to adapt. It wasn't just an improvement on existing systems. It was an entirely new approach. After countless nights and weekends spent refining the algorithm, building prototypes, and running simulations, I finally had something worth presenting. According to my contract, any work developed using company resources technically belonged to Nexus. But developers who created successful products were rewarded with substantial bonuses and promotions. Some had even been made partners. My boss, Marcus Blackwood, had been with Nexus for 15 years. He'd climbed from engineering to VP of product development through a combination of technical knowledge, business acumen, and what I'd always assumed was genuine leadership skill. With his salt and pepper hair and tailored suits, he looked like he'd walked straight out of a successful executive casting call. He had a corner office with a view of the city skyline, a reputation for demanding excellence, and a habit of taking credit for his team's best ideas. I'd overlooked that last part for years, convincing myself it was just part of corporate culture. After all, he'd mentored me, given me challenging projects, and seemed to value my contributions. Whenever he presented my solutions to the board as if they were collaborative efforts, or occasionally, entirely his own, I told myself it was just how the game was played. He was opening doors for me, wasn't he? Helping my work get noticed. What a fool I was. The morning I planned to present Foresight Flow to Marcus, I arrived early, rehearsing my pitch as I rode the elevator to the 37th floor. The prototype was ready, the business case solid, and I had numbers projecting the potential market value. This wasn't just another feature or update. This could transform Nexus's entire business model and position us as industry leaders. "Morning, Cass," called Damon from IT as I passed his desk. "You look serious today." "Big presentation," I replied, trying to keep my nervous excitement contained. "Wish me luck." "You don't need luck," he laughed. "Blackwood already thinks you walk on water." If only that had been true. Marcus's office door was closed when I arrived, but I could see him through the glass wall, hunched over his computer. I knocked gently, and he waved me in without looking up. "I've got the quarterly reports due in an hour, Cassandra," he said, still typing. "Can this wait?" "Actually, I think you'll want to see this now," I said, setting my laptop on the conference table in the corner of his office. "It's what I've been working on in my development time. I think it could be huge for us." That got his attention. Marcus finally looked up, his expression shifting from irritation to curiosity. He stood, straightening his tie, and joined me at the table. "All right, impress me." For the next 20 minutes, I walked him through Foresight Flow, the concept, the technology, the market potential. I showed him simulations demonstrating how it had predicted actual supply chain disruptions using historical data. I outlined the competitive advantage it would give Nexus clients and the recurring revenue model I'd designed. As I spoke, Marcus's expression changed. The polite interest gave way to something more intense. He asked sharp, insightful questions that told me he immediately grasped the value of what I'd created. By the end of my presentation, he was leaning forward, completely engaged. "This is unexpected," he said finally, sitting back in his chair. "How long have you been working on this?" "About 3 years, on and off," I admitted. "The last 6 months have been pretty intensive. I've been refining the algorithm and building out the user interface." Marcus nodded slowly, tapping his fingers on the table. "And you've discussed this with anyone else at Nexus?" "No," I said. "I wanted you to be the first to see it. I thought we could present it to the executive team together." "Smart," he said, and smiled in a way that, looking back, should have warned me. "Send me all your files. I'll review everything in detail and we'll discuss next steps. The board meeting next week might be perfect timing for this." I left his office feeling elated. After years of work, Foresight Flow was finally going to become reality. I spent the rest of the day packaging up my documentation, code repositories, and presentation materials, then sent everything to Marcus with a detailed email explaining each component. That night, I celebrated with a bottle of champagne I'd been saving for a special occasion. I called my sister in Boston to share the news. "Just be careful," she warned. "I've seen this play out before. Make sure you get proper credit." "Marcus isn't like that," I assured her. "We've worked together for years. He knows how much this means to me." The next week crawled by. Marcus was suddenly unavailable, in meetings I wasn't invited to. His office door closed when it had always been open. When we did speak, he was distracted, giving vague responses about still reviewing my proposal. By Thursday, with the board meeting scheduled for Friday morning, my anxiety was peaking. I finally cornered him as he was leaving for the day. "Marcus, about tomorrow. What time should I be ready to present Foresight Flow?" He looked almost startled, then regained his composure. About that. I've decided it needs more development before it's board ready. We'll revisit in a quarter or two." "A quarter or two?" I couldn't hide my shock. "But it's ready now. The prototype works. The business case is solid." "Cassandra," he cut me off, his tone suddenly cold. "I've made my decision. The project isn't mature enough yet. Keep refining it, and we'll discuss it again in the future." I stood in the hallway, watching him walk away, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. Something was very wrong. That night, I couldn't sleep. Why would Marcus delay presenting a product that could transform our company's future? It made no business sense. Unless... At 2 a.m., a terrible suspicion drove me back to my computer. I logged into the company's project management system, searching for any mention of Foresight Flow. Nothing. I checked the shared drive where I'd stored backup files, empty. With growing dread, I logged into my email to find the message I'd sent Marcus with all my work attached. It wasn't in my sent folder, it wasn't in trash, it was gone. My hands were shaking as I called it. "Damon, it's Cassandra. I know it's the middle of the night, but I need your help. It's an emergency." Damon had always been friendly. We'd had lunch together occasionally. And he'd helped me recover files more than once when my computer crashed. I heard him yawn. "Cass, what's going on?" "I need to check if files have been deleted from my account. Important files. Can you help me?" There was a pause. "This sounds serious." "It is, I think. I think someone may have deleted my work." Another long pause. "Come in early tomorrow. Don't tell anyone why." I was at the office by 6 a.m. Damon met me in the empty IT department, looking concerned. "Before we start," he said quietly, "you should know something. There was a directive last week to prepare for a major announcement. New product rollout. The tech team has been setting up demo environments, but everything's been very hush-hush." My stomach dropped. "When's the announcement?" "Tomorrow, after the board meeting." For the next hour, Damon helped me search for any trace of my work on the company's servers. We found nothing. Every file related to Foresight Flow had been systematically erased. But Damon did find something else. Access logs showing that Marcus had downloaded all my files, then deleted them from my account and the server backups. He'd even used admin privileges to remove my sent emails. "This is corporate theft," Damon whispered, looking nervously toward the door as early arrivals began filtering into the office. "He's presenting your work as his own, isn't he?" I nodded, too angry to speak. "What are you going to do?" Damon asked. What could I do? It was my word against a VP's. The company legally owned any work I'd developed, and I had no proof it had been my creation. Marcus had been thorough. Almost thorough. "Damon," I said slowly, "does your team still have access to the Office server from before the system migration last year?" He frowned. "The old server, it's just for archive purposes now." "Why?" "Because 3 months ago, before the migration, I emailed myself a full backup of my early Foresight Flow development, just in case my laptop died. If that email still exists on the old server." Damon's eyes widened. "It might. Let me check." 20 minutes later, we had it. An email from my company account to my personal Gmail, with attachments containing early versions of Foresight Flow, dated timestamps, and notes in my distinctive coding style. It wasn't the final version, but it was undeniably mine, created months before Marcus would claim to have developed the concept. "This proves you created it," Damon said. "You need to report him." I shook my head. "To whom? The CEO? The board?" "Marcus has been here forever. He's friends with all of them. They play golf together, for God's sake. Even with this evidence, they'll find a way to dismiss it." "Then what?" I stared at the screen, at the proof of my creation, and something hardened inside me. Years of watching Marcus take partial credit for my work. Years of being the good team player. Years of believing that merit would eventually be recognized. No more. "I'm going to need a copy of that email," I said quietly. "And I'm going to need your discretion." Damon looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "Whatever you're planning, be careful. Marcus isn't just powerful here, he's vindictive." I knew that. I'd seen how he'd systematically pushed out employees who challenged him, but he'd never faced someone with nothing left to lose. I spent the rest of the day in a strange, calm state. I attended meetings, answered emails, and nodded politely when colleagues mentioned rumors about an exciting announcement coming tomorrow. All while my mind worked on a plan. That evening, I made 3 calls. The first was to an intellectual property lawyer named Diana Fraser, recommended by a college friend. I explained my situation, sent her the evidence, and asked about my options. "Your employment contract complicates things," she said after reviewing the documents. "Technically, Nexus owns the intellectual property, but the way it was taken, the deliberate erasure of your authorship that crosses several legal lines, we could potentially challenge it. But litigation would be lengthy and expensive." "What about selling it to someone else?" I asked. There was a pause. "That would be extremely risky. If you developed it using company resources, selling it elsewhere could open you to serious liability. Even if I recreated it from scratch, using only the earliest version that predates any significant company resource use, and made substantial changes." Another pause. "That's a gray area. I'd need to review exactly what you're proposing. But Cassandra, think carefully before you do anything drastic. Corporate disputes can destroy careers. My career at Nexus was already destroyed. Marcus would never allow me to advance after this, even if I said nothing. The moment he announced Foresight Flow as his creation, my future there would be over, whether I stayed or not." The second call was to Julian Reeves, a former Nexus developer who'd left to join Vertex Solutions, a direct competitor. We'd stayed in touch, occasionally meeting for drinks to catch up on industry gossip. Julian had been trying to recruit me for years. "I've been developing something," I told him. "Something big. But I can't discuss details yet. If I could get it working, Would Vertex be interested? Interested enough to meet with you, Julian said cautiously. When? Soon. Very soon. The third call was to my sister. I need a place to stay for a while, I said. And I need to borrow your spare laptop. Mine might be compromised. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I worked. Starting with only the earliest prototype from my recovered email, I rebuilt Foresight Flow from memory. I changed variable names, restructured the architecture, and added new features I'd been considering but hadn't implemented. By morning, I had the bones of something that was recognizably Foresight Flow's cousin, but different enough to potentially survive legal scrutiny. I called it Vision Chain. At 8 a.m., I walked into Nexus for what I knew would be the last time. I wore my best suit and carried a letter of resignation in my bag. As expected, there was a buzz of excitement in the office. People gathered in clusters, whispering about the rumored announcement. At 9 a.m., an email went out to all staff, inviting us to a company-wide meeting at 11 to unveil a groundbreaking new product line. I spent those 2 hours backing up personal files, clearing out my desk discreetly, and saying casual goodbyes that my colleagues didn't realize were final. At 11 a.m., we all filed into the main conference room. Marcus stood at the front, alongside CEO James Harrington and the entire executive team. Large screens displayed a sleek logo, Foresight Flow, my creation, my name, my years of work. Marcus stepped forward, beaming with pride that turned my stomach. Today marks a new chapter for Nexus Dynamics, he began. For the past 2 years, I've been developing a revolutionary approach to supply chain management. 2 years, he couldn't even get that right. As he continued, describing my algorithm, my interface, my business model, I felt strangely detached, as if watching a play with a particularly unconvincing actor. Around me, colleagues nodded, impressed. Some turned to smile at me. They knew I worked closely with Marcus and assumed I'd been part of the development team. After the presentation, during the applause, I slipped out and went directly to HR. I handed over my resignation letter, effective immediately, citing personal reasons. The HR manager looked surprised but processed my departure without question. I turned in my badge, my laptop, and 7 years of my professional life. As I walked out of the building, my phone buzzed with texts from confused colleagues. Where had I gone? Wasn't I excited about the announcement? Didn't I want to celebrate? I ignored them all and called Julian. I'm ready to meet now, I said. Today. 3 hours later, I sat in a conference room at Vertex Solutions, opposite Julian and his boss, Vertex's Chief Innovation Officer, Meredith Zhao. On the table between us was my sister's laptop, displaying the rough but functional prototype of Vision Chain. This is impressive, Meredith said after my demonstration, especially considering how quickly you put it together. But I have to ask, why bring this to us now? Why leave Nexus so suddenly? I took a deep breath and told them everything. About developing Foresight Flow over years, about Marcus stealing it, about rebuilding it from scratch as Vision Chain. I can prove I created the original concept, I said, showing them the recovered email. And while there are similarities between Foresight Flow and Vision Chain, I've made significant architectural changes. This isn't just a copy with the serial numbers filed off. Meredith and Julian exchanged glances. We'd need our legal team to review this carefully, Meredith said. The last thing Vertex needs is an IP lawsuit from Nexus. I understand, I replied. I've consulted with an IP attorney who believes Vision Chain is legally distinct from what Nexus is developing, but I'm open to whatever due diligence you need to perform. And if we were interested, Julian asked carefully, what would you be looking for? A development role leading the project, I said. Creative control, and appropriate compensation for the innovation. Meredith nodded slowly. We can't make any commitments today, but I'm intrigued enough to take this to our executive team. Can you come back tomorrow for a more formal presentation? I agreed, and spent another sleepless night refining Vision Chain, making it even more distinct from Foresight Flow while preserving its core value. The next day, I presented to Vertex's entire executive team, answering technical questions, explaining market applications, and addressing potential legal concerns. A week later, after intense negotiation and thorough legal review, I signed a contract with Vertex Solutions. They would acquire VisionChain for $3 million upfront, with additional performance bonuses that could reach $12 million if the product met certain market penetration goals. I would join Vertex as Director of Predictive Technologies, leading the team that would develop VisionChain into a market-ready product. The day after I signed, Nexus Dynamics announced Foresight Flow to the industry. Tech blogs covered it extensively, praising the innovative approach. Marcus was quoted in several articles, discussing his vision and the years of development that had gone into the product. 3 months later, Vertex announced VisionChain. The industry coverage was immediate and explosive, not just because the product seemed more advanced than Foresight Flow, but because of who was behind it. Former Nexus developer launches competing product. Read one headline. Supply chain prediction. War heats up, proclaimed another. Nexus's legal team contacted Vertex within hours of the announcement, threatening litigation. Vertex's lawyers responded with a detailed technical comparison of the two products, highlighting the substantial differences, along with a subtle reminder that they possessed evidence regarding the true origins of Foresight Flow that Nexus might not want made public. The lawsuit never materialized. Over the next 6 months, both products went to market. Foresight Flow had Nexus's established client base and Marcus's aggressive promotion. But VisionChain had a more refined algorithm, a more intuitive interface, and most importantly, me, the actual creator who understood the technology at its deepest level and could speak to it with authentic passion. Enterprise clients noticed the difference. VisionChain began winning comparative evaluations. Major corporations started switching from Nexus to Vertex. Industry analysts praised VisionChain's superior prediction accuracy and easier implementation. 8 months after my departure from Nexus, I received my first performance bonus, $4 million. VisionChain had exceeded its initial market penetration targets by 40%. As we celebrated at Vertex headquarters, Julian showed me an industry news article on his phone. Nexus Dynamics announces restructuring, the headline read. The article detailed how Nexus was laying off 15% of its workforce following 2 quarters of declining revenue. Among those departing was Marcus Blackwood, whose flagship product Foresight Flow had failed to meet expectations. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt a complex mix of emotions, satisfaction, certainly, but also sadness for the colleagues who were losing their jobs because of Marcus's actions and the company's response to failure. 2 days later, I received an unexpected email from Damon, who had managed to keep his position at Nexus. Thought you'd want to see this, he wrote, attaching an internal company memo. It detailed an investigation into ethical breaches in the development of Foresight Flow, prompted by concerns raised by several team members after Marcus's departure. Without naming me specifically, it acknowledged that the original concept had been inappropriately attributed and that corrective measures were being implemented to prevent similar situations in the future. Too little, too late. But it was something. A week after that, I received another surprise, a LinkedIn message from James Harrington, Nexus's CEO. I owe you an apology, he wrote. I've recently learned the truth about Foresight Flow's development. While I can't undo what happened, I want you to know that had I been aware of the situation, I would have handled it very differently. Marcus's actions do not reflect Nexus's values. If you're ever interested in discussing your future, my door is open. I never responded. My future wasn't with Nexus anymore. 1 year to the day after I walked out of Nexus for the last time, VisionChain reached its final performance milestone. My total compensation, including salary and all bonuses, had reached $15 million. Vertex promoted me to Vice President of Innovation, with an expanded team and budget to develop new predictive technologies. That evening, As I sat in my new apartment overlooking the city, I received a text from an unknown number. Congratulations on your success. I always knew you were talented. Perhaps we could meet for coffee sometime. MB. Marcus. Unbelievable. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and began working on a new project, a mentorship program for young developers, especially women, focused on protecting their intellectual property and navigating corporate politics. I called it Foresight Protect, because the best revenge isn't just success, it's making sure what happened to you never happens to anyone else. They say living well is the best revenge. But I disagree. The best revenge is living well, succeeding beyond anyone's expectations, and changing the system that allowed you to be wronged in the first place. My name is Cassandra Mitchell, and I didn't just get even, I got ahead. And I'm bringing others with me.